All right, everybody. I got 301, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us for the April 2024 meeting of the DuPage ROSC Council. My name's Jared. I am your ROSC coordinator. Could we please start off the meeting by asking everyone to please mute your microphones unless it is your turn to speak so we can cut down on interruptions. I tasked my colleague Danny Sorbis with being my microphone muting assassin here. So hopefully we don't have to give him any extra work today. We appreciate it. And also, a bunch of you have already started, but if you want, could you please put your name and info into the chat? The state appreciates it. It helps us to submit who's coming to our meetings, but also it's a great way to stay connected, not only through these meetings, but also in outside collaborations and programs and all that. So if you could do that, that would be awesome. Just a reminder for everybody who's here, maybe for the first time, or even just needs a refresher on what we do. The DuPage ROSC is made up of people with lived experience. So people in recovery, their friends, family members, basically anybody who's been touched in their own lives by substance use and mental health challenges, but also people and organizations that are working along that continuum of recovery. So we identify the gaps in services. We try to collaborate to fill those gaps. We advocate for people still struggling. We try and do our best to be public facing to help reduce stigma and overall create a system of care and really a culture of recovery in DuPage County. So that's kind of the mission of DuPage ROSC for those of you who maybe are here for the first time. I always start off with something anecdotal, so I'm going to do that again. The former radio producer in me is always trying to think of titles for segments, so I'm going to try to hold off on doing that, even though I always start with one of these. So yesterday, Danny and myself went over, actually this was 2 days ago, it was Eclipse Day. We went over to see the folks at People's Resource Center in Wheaton, right next to where they're actually building a pretty amazing brand new facility. We spoke to some of their staff about identifying both substance use and mental health challenges in some of their clients, but also how to approach, how to de-escalate certain situations and more. And I really think that we had a great time talking with them, right? We were talking with them, we were not talking to them. And it reminded me of why we do the work that we do in the ROSC. And so it's really to bring together organizations who work along different areas of the recovery and wellness continuum to kind of better understand and work with clients across all areas of their lives, really with a shared goal of increased wellness, like across the board. We love being able to collaborate with people now, whether that's us as the ROSC or just folks who've met through our meetings, folks who've met through events that we put on, being able to connect with each other, helping each other out in places like the ROSC Referral Hub, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But it really reminded me of what the ROSC is meant to be doing. And I just am so grateful that we have so many amazing organizations and people who come back month after month to be a part of this thing. So from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for continuing to come back month after month. Why don't we take a look at some of today's agenda and let's promote some upcoming meetings and things like that. So if you'll allow me to share my screen, we'll go ahead and do that. All righty. So I'm going to preview some upcoming meetings, trainings, and events that we got going on. I'm going to throw it over to Danny in here just a little bit so he can kind of go over our WhatsApp referral group, give you the latest on what's going on in there. We got a couple of great presenters with us, Brenda Pasia and Sabrina Albert, who are over at R&B Counseling, to talk to us about their mission, providing services for refugee and BIPOC communities, which is incredibly important. We're so glad to have them here with us. Originally, we had a presentation as well from Restoration 61, and that is going to be postponed. But I do have our friend Mike Wood coming on later to talk a little bit about a new spiritual organization that he has helped getting up off the ground. So he'll speak to us a little bit about that. And then, of course, we always leave time at the end to kind of hear from other people here. What are your organizations doing? What programs are you running? What gaps are you seeing? Where do you need help? We'll try to get into all of that towards the end. So why don't we talk about some upcoming presentations and trainings? So the next DuPage ROSC presentation series, if you're unfamiliar with what that is a monthly meeting that is separate from this one. So ROSC Council meeting is on the second Wednesday of every month. The ROSC presentation series is on the third Wednesday. So it's on the third Wednesday of every month at 10 a.m. And we really like to give an entire hour dedicated to a topic related to substance use or mental health. Sometimes it's topics that are overlooked. Sometimes it's topics that need a little bit more attention. Sometimes it's just to give that topic some room to breathe and to have conversations around it. One of the ones that I've been trying to do for like 2 years, you can ask my staff, is one on methadone, because methadone tends to still have a stigma attached to it. However, it is a pathway to recovery for quite a few people. And we do have organizations doing good work in the MAT and MAR space, and that includes methadone. And so we're glad to have Marissa from one of our partners at Stony Brook Center to talk to us about methadone. You will want to make it to that one. So that is next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Those meetings are only on Zoom, but those are open to whoever wants to come. So we can hope you can join us. We're always looking for new presenters. So if you or somebody you know has a topic you're particularly passionate about, or just something that interests you, be interested in presenting, reach out to me. We'd be happy to get you on. ROSC also does some quarterly drives. In the past, we've done stuff for People's Resource Center. We've done stuff for Teen Parent Connection. This time, we are doing something for our friends at the Midwest Shelter for Homeless Veterans. They always have a running list of things that they could use, and I put some of them onto this flyer. We've already had some amazing donations. Our friend Astrid dropped off, I think we counted 11 full bags of clothes for donations to the shelter, which is amazing. We're probably gonna end up having to make like multiple trips to deliver everything. We're gonna be collecting these things through May. I'm gonna try to get them delivered over to Midwest Shelter probably the first week of June. But you can kind of see just household items, kitchen items, linens, cleaning supplies, toiletries, and as always, clothing and winter items from the medium up to 3XL. So if this is something you could do, if you've got stuff you want to clean out of your closet, maybe gently used stuff or new stuff, we would love to collect it. You can always drop stuff off at Serenity House, usually between 9 and 5. So that's over here in Addison. Or you can always contact me to make other arrangements within reason. You guys have always done amazing in donating for these drives previously, and continuing to do that for this one. So we would love to have some stuff donated if you got it. Coming up, and this is actually next Saturday, is the second annual, well, it's not even annual, the second DuPage ROSC RCO game night. We did this a couple of months ago and had such a blast that we're going to do it again. I'm going to try real quick. I've tried to show off this trophy because we try to get specialized fun trophies made for these things. If you can see this, this says DuPage ROSC Game Night Goat, and there's actual goat on there. We did give one of these away at our last one. The defending champ says that he's going to take this one as well. I challenge you to come out and take the goat award away from Darian. But yeah, we have a lot of fun. We put up video games in a few different stations, including up on this big screen behind me. I think we're running Mario Kart on that, and then we're running some other Switches and possibly Xbox. But in addition, if you're not a video game player, we've got cards, we've got board games, we'll have refreshments. It's just a really, really fun time. This is open, so if you're at an organization, maybe you work with some clients who are even in early recovery, and maybe they are looking for safe, sober, fun activities, feel free to send them to this. We would love to have them here. And we will probably continue to have nights like this moving forward, but we would love to have you next Saturday. That's here at Serenity House from 7 to 9 p.m. Couple of meetings too. Connection Through Law. So this is the grief and loss group that we run here at Serenity House. So this is the second and fourth Thursday of every month at 7:30 p.m. Run by our own Felicia Maselli. She not only runs that group here and has run a grief and loss group for a number of years. She's also one of our coaches who goes and does this similar class inside DuPage County jails. It's very, very beneficial for the people who continue to come. We all know somebody who's experienced some kind of loss, whether that's from the opioid crisis or mental health. I think we've all been touched by this in some way, shape, or form. So if you know somebody who's struggling, or maybe it's you, we would love for you to come out and see us. It's a great, very welcoming group, and we would love to see you over here for that one. In addition, a couple of SMART recovery meetings. We have started up a women's SMART recovery meeting here, and that's Tuesdays at 8:30. Danielle and Felicia run that one. If you're unfamiliar with SMART recovery, it's kind of a goals-based CBT recovery-based system, obviously different from 12-step, which we have a great 12-step system out here in DuPage County. SMART recovery, we're trying to build up some more. So that's one of them. And then there's a smart friends and family meeting on Thursdays from 6 to 7 p.m. Sometimes we forget about the families, right? We take a lot of focus on people who are going through the struggles themselves. We forget about how the families are affected. So we're really trying to reach out to those folks and say, look, you got a place to come in and talk and share about the experiences that you're going through if you've got a loved one who is struggling with substance use challenges. So we would love to have you for any of these meetings. So I'm going to stop this share. I'm going to do a different share, and then I'm going to get it over to Danny. Hang on 1 second, because I have 2 more events, and then we will get going on that. The first one is tonight, actually, at Benedictine University is the Family Shelter Service Take Back the Night event, and that is at Benedictine University from 6 to 8:30 p.m. Not only is there going to be a resource fair, but survivors of sexual violence speaking out. There will be a solidarity walk. Take Back the Night has been going on for many, many years with the goal of ending sexual violence in all of its forms. And this is a great way to show support. Family Shelter Service does amazing work, and we're glad to be out there and have a table with them tonight. So if you are free and want to be an ally, go out to Benedictine. One more, and I'm going to bring this one up later because Mike will be on with us. But the Spiritual Care Network is having, I believe it's its first meeting. So Spiritual Care Network is kind of built to bridge the gap between providers and faith-based communities, which sometimes there is a gap there, and we're learning how to bridge that. So the first meeting of the Spiritual Care Network will be Thursday, April 25th from 1 to 3 p.m. at the Compass Church on Hobson Road in Naperville. I think that might be the Yellow Box Church that it used to be called. I could be wrong. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. In my early days of 12-step, I went to a lot of meetings at that church, so it should be cool. So yeah, mark those down, show up and support our fellow organizations. I'm going to stop share here for a minute. I am going to turn it over to Danny Sorbis, my constant companion in all things ROSC. He does an amazing job in running the DuPage ROSC WhatsApp referral group, and he always updates us on what's going on in there. And will, I guess, if you've never heard of it before, maybe tell you a little bit about it. So Danny, I'm going to turn it over to you for a minute.
Thank you, Jared. Good afternoon, everyone. If you haven't heard of our WhatsApp referral hub, it started off as, well, it was born from a text thread that was started by Jared and quite a few other people, because they wanted to fill the gaps of treatment. So when people didn't know, where to go, all of a sudden it's like, hey, we have somebody needing detox, but they have this specific insurance. Where can we send them? So Jared and some others said, let's create a text thread and get people into treatment as soon as they can. From there, we noticed that every time you add somebody else, it creates a new thread, and that different carriers only allow a certain amount of people on there. So we said, you know what, let's start the WhatsApp referral hub. So the WhatsApp referral hub has been active since February 1st of 2023. So it's just over a year old. And here's this month's update. Again, thank you to everyone who's been part of it. Our team now has 93 members, which is awesome. We're close to 100 members, and that's throughout the state. We have been joined by members of the following organizations this month: Serenity House, NAMI, College of DuPage, Footprints to Recovery, Modern Med Recovery, Heinz VA, and Naomi's House. Over the last month, we've been able to provide referrals for detox and residential treatment for substance use disorders, PHP and IOP with housing for substance use disorders and mental health challenges, Vivitrol shots, support group for sexual abuse, driving evaluation, Sublocade providers, grief support groups, pain management resources, living rooms, mental health shelters, MAT and MAR, porn addiction therapists, and sober living. Something that we just started over the last couple months too is having a monthly referral MVP, and this month's race was a close one. The individual who provided the most referrals this month was Don Mitkis from Relief Mental Health. So thank you, Don. And he just did our presentation series last month as well, so that's cool. Whether you provided or requested 1 or 100 referrals, they are all meaningful into helping our clients, and we thank you for your support. I will put my contact info in the chat if you guys have any questions or interested in joining.
All right, thanks, Danny. Yeah, I highly suggest joining that if you have not already. we're always trying to find ways to improve that model that we use. And although it's getting a ton of use, as Danny kind of mentioned, on any given week, there's dozens of referral questions and referrals that people are helping each other with. But we kind of realized when we were thinking about it that it would be even more helpful if somehow the public could have access to something like this, right? So right now it's currently, only people who are kind of working in the field, or maybe there's some PLEs, people with experience in there who are just kind of trying to help out. The kind of workaround we have right now, and I'll bring this up again on screen kind of towards the end of the meeting. If you go to the DuPage ROSC website, which is DuPageROSC.org, on the main page, there's actually a form there where you can request services. So if you're a member of the public, maybe you've got a family member who's struggling from substance use and is maybe trying to find residential treatment for the very first time. I remember what it was like when I was trying to find treatment for the very first time. It felt like a labyrinth. It was discouraging based on different types of insurance and who has a bed open. It can be kind of discouraging. And we also know how important it is that when the time is right to be able to get somebody what they need. Sometimes the window of opportunity for someone willing to go to treatment is so short that we want to try to get them in as soon as we can. So if you go to our website, DuPageROSC.org, there's a form on the main page where you can request any types of services. Those requests go straight to the ROSC office. So they go to myself and Danny, but we also disperse those throughout to our coaches who will get in touch with that person as a real life ROSC coach. You can talk to an actual person about your options, which sometimes can really, really make the difference. So if you know somebody on the spot who's just really looking for services, you can send them to DuPageROSC.org. One other thing I wanted to get into before we turn it over to our first presenters and guests for the day. One of the subjects and one of the topics that I think some of you know that we do when we work in, but I don't talk about on this meeting a whole lot, is one of the most gratifying parts of the ROSC coaches and also the RCO coaches. DuPage RCO works with us through the ROSC, is the work that we get to do inside DuPage County jails. So when we first started the DuPage ROSC, one of the first things that we identified as a gap in services out here was being able to reach more people inside DuPage County jails, specifically those people who were trying to recover from substance use. We thought, it's hard enough to get out of jail if you do not have a substance problem, but if you add that onto it, it can sometimes be doubly hard. So a couple of years ago, we started going into DuPage County Jail. We started with one class on a Sunday morning. And we still do that class. It's called Re-Entry for Criminal and Addictive Thinking. From that class, we expanded to where we are now. We do 4 different classes inside DuPage County jails. We also do grief and loss. Danny and our other colleague, Chris, do a kind of intro to recovery topics class. And our other coach, Jim Murphy, does Heroin Anonymous. Now, in addition, we are also starting up this year an employment training program specifically for like industrial and house painting. So the reason we identified that in that reentry class and in the other classes that we were leading, one of the main concerns that the men and women we talked to had dealt with what were they going to do for work when they got out. Now that's a problem in a couple of different ways, right? Some of them have not had a quote unquote legal job in a while. Some of them were making money on the street or making money under the table. Some of them really want to work a normal job, but they have felonies on the record that will keep them from getting a job where they can, make a decent amount of money. They can survive and provide for their families, but also start to look into a career. So we were hearing that anxiety and those requests from those folks. And so we said, what can we do to kind of help with employment training? Jim Murphy, who I mentioned earlier, is a former union painter. He's been doing house painting and industrial painting for a long period of time. And so he went out and got us a few $1,000s worth of donated paint and supplies. And we're happy to say in the next month or so, we're going to be starting up a training program inside DuPage County jails where these guys can get certification and they can make connections within the painters union. So when they get out, they can have some hope as far as the employment piece goes. And so that's been one of the most gratifying things that we've been able to do. But I just wanted to talk to real quick. I wanted to ask Danielle, who works with us, who has been going into jails along with some of our other coaches here, just to talk a little bit about her experience going into the jails and what she's found when she goes in and does those classes.
Hey everybody, my name is Danielle and I'm a coach with DuPage ROSC and Serenity House. Yeah, definitely the jails has been one of my favorite parts about working here. As a person with lived experience, it's, although jail or prison wasn't in my story, it very well could have, and it's just really great to give back to the people that are struggling and, that challenge of like how do you take the next step? There's all these barriers. I help run the reentry class. It's super awesome. It's super nice to get to know the guys and to kind of like help give them that hope, help them get that roadmap on what they need to pay attention to and what they need to work on when they get out. It's super awesome. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Danielle. Danny, do you have anything you want to mention about the jails before I get to our guests?
I second kind of what Danielle was saying. It's such a great thing to be there, right? We go there and we instill hope is really what it is. These gentlemen that we meet with, we meet with the men and the women there. I'm part of the grief and loss class with Felicia and the understanding addictions class with Chris. And they really appreciate our time, right? They say you're coming to us, you're sharing your own personal experiences as well as the education that you've been given throughout the years, and they're learning how to improve themselves and be more productive individuals. There's so many of them who want to come once they leave the jail system, and either come to Serenity House and or just reach out to us for coaching. They want to become coaches themselves. So I think it's great to instill that kind of hope in them.
All right, thanks, Danny. You too can be a volunteer at DuPage County Jail. I do feel the need to tell you that. If you're interested in something, they are always looking for volunteers to come in and lead classes and talk to the men and women. So if that is something that you are interested in, please reach out to me. I've got tons of copies of the applications. I'd be happy to walk you through that process. It is incredibly gratifying work to see these men and women from where we start with them to where they are at the end of these classes and when they get released. It's really, really cool to see. So if you're interested in that, reach out to me. All right, we are now time to talk to some of our presenters. So I'm really, really happy to have here with us Sabrina Albert and Brenda Pasia. So Sabrina Albert is an LCSW, and she's also the CEO of R&B Counseling in Downers Grove. And Brenda is a LSW and a therapist there. R&B Counseling is a practice that's dedicated to providing a safe and supportive environment for refugees and minorities in the western suburbs of Chicago. The team is comprised of minority professionals, many of whom are immigrants themselves or the adult children of immigrants and who come from an ethnic and or religious minority. I thought it was really important to bring them here to talk about that because I think this is one of those, I hate to use the word specialized service, but a service for people that sometimes don't always have a seat at the table, don't always have easy access to services. And it's a population that we want to do our best to serve and find new ways to do that and remain culturally competent as we're trying to do that. So I'm really, really happy to have them here. Sabrina and Brenda, I'm going to turn it over to you. If you want to share the screen to show the website, you can. Otherwise, I can do that. Just let me know. But thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Jared. And awesome work that you guys are doing in the jails. I think that's awesome. We are also sub-awardees of a grant. So we've been providing Southside Chicagoans who are justice impacted with counseling services, reentry services. So many of the clientele have served extremely lengthy time in prison for cannabis, and a lot of it as a result of the failed war on drugs, a lot of racism, lack of access to quality defense attorneys when they were facing charges, getting pressured into signing, plea agreements and pleading guilty to that of which they're not. So I have great admiration for people who are doing the work that you all are doing. So thank you for that. Like Jared said, I am the founder and CEO of R&B Counseling, which stands for Refugee and BIPOC. For those who are unfamiliar with the term BIPOC, that stands for Black, Indigenous, Person of Color. And I'm also the CEO of Stonecatchers Counseling. So we operate 2 practices in one facility. Stonecatchers Counseling has been around for 3.5 years. The only difference between Stonecatchers and R&B is that Stonecatchers was incorporated as a for-profit practice and R&B is a nonprofit practice. So basically what happened is our therapists, the majority that we serve are for people who are on Medicaid, right? And since we are so passionate about that, a lot of our therapists who are providing this amazing services weren't qualifying for some of the benefits that nonprofit agencies provided, such as student loan forgiveness. So that's why we opened R&B counseling, because the state of Illinois, as well as the IRS, has given us 501(c) status based on our work. And now our therapists also qualify for student loan forgiveness. So that's one of the reasons about why we have two practices. So R&B counseling and Stonecatchers, we really believe in anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and culturally responsive care. That is very important to us. We also believe in providing just, equitable, and accessible mental health care. So we have 16 therapists, all who are people of color, and we speak Creole, French, Farsi, Dari, Arabic, and Spanish. Okay, so that's really important to us, because one of the biggest barriers for people to try to get services is a language barrier, especially when you have refugees fleeing their home country. And for anyone who doesn't know the difference between refugees and immigrants, immigrants come here searching for a better life, like the way that my parents came here from India, right? They wanted to come here, they wanted better opportunities, and that's why they immigrated here. Refugees are fleeing persecution and their life depends on it. And that is the big difference, because when you're serving people who are refugees, they're not just coming, they've been ripped away from their home country, they've been ripped away from everything that they know to be true, put in a completely new environment, but now they also have the language barriers, trying to adjust to a different culture, not knowing the Medicaid process, how to be able to get approved, and dealing with so many different burdens, right? And that's a lot of what our clientele does. So we run about 1,400 sessions a month, and 93% of our clients are on Medicaid. And this is really important to us, because most practices in DuPage County are not accepting Medicaid, and that's a serious gap in care. Okay, so we have a lot of people who are trying to get substance abuse treatment, trying to get into detox, trying to get into rehab, trying to get anything, but they're being denied care over basically their socioeconomic status. And a lot of people don't realize that in Illinois and all over the United States, it is perfectly acceptable in the mental health care system to discriminate against somebody over their ability to pay. Any agency that turns away someone saying, we are not taking you because you have Medicaid, is saying, we are not taking you because of your socioeconomic class. And that is a serious problem and a serious gap in care, right? So what happens for our clients is they're coming in with not only their depression, their anxiety, their post-traumatic stress disorder, they're also coming in with having to deal with racial oppression, discrimination, isolation. On top of that, they've been sent messages their entire life that they are not worthy of care, right? And they've owned this mentality. So oftentimes, poverty is a cycle, right? So many of our adults were on Medicaid as children too. They witnessed their parents calling, I need help for my child, I need help for my child. And it's like calling the rejection hotline. Sorry, we don't take because of your insurance. Sorry, we don't take because of your insurance. Sorry, like click, 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 right? At least once or twice a week, a parent breaks down crying when I do their intake, saying they've called 50, 60, 70, 80. One person even said 100 places trying to get their child care, and everyone turned them away for having Medicaid. Okay, this is a serious problem, because in the United States, there are 40 million children on Medicaid. So if you're part of an organization that says we are not going to treat you, that is isolating a whole set of community from being able to access care. And that is one of the issues that we deal with, is that when people come in, they don't even entertain sometimes detox or this or that, because they're like, oh no, that's not for me. Those are for, like, rich people or the people who have Blue Cross Blue Shield, PPO. I don't get access to that care. I'm not worthy of that care. Or that's not even something that they've entertained. And there's also, when people come to us, they're having to combat certain cultural norms too. Like in their culture, if it's said, oh no, that's terrible, you don't do that. Like in my family's from India. You don't go to therapy, you don't do that, and you don't talk about it. And if you do, you're bringing shame to the family. Right? So now you have an added burden of having to overcome the shame and overcome the stigma to your own family. And oftentimes having to hide getting care, like, oh, I'm hiding in the car because I don't want this person to know, or please don't send any mail to my house because I can't have my family members know, or people saying, I have to do virtual, even though I want in person because I can't allow anyone to see me in the waiting room, right? So you're having trauma upon trauma, and then you're having to hide it, and you're coming to therapy and mental health from a shame-based perspective, right? And that's really what we're dealing with at R&B and Stonecatchers Counseling, is how can we overcome these barriers, and how can we motivate other people in the community to realize the importance of accepting all plans, right? Because a lot of times we have people that are coming from a very individualistic perspective, right? They're not thinking about collective action and how can we work together as a community to make sure that everyone is sharing having Medicaid clients, everyone is sharing taking on pro bono clients, right? What we do is we isolate certain places that are doing that, and then we throw referrals at them like left and right, right? I mean, there are times where we may get 20, 30, 40 referrals in a day during some of our rush times, right? And we had always planned to be a smaller practice, maybe having 5 to 8 therapists, and now we have 16 and still struggling to keep up with the influx of clients, right? And a lot of what we're trying to combat in the community is to try to educate people, because there's so many lies and distortions about what it means to take Medicaid, right? People tell me all the time, like, I say, why don't you take Medicaid? They say, oh, no, they don't reimburse at rates that we can afford. And I say, well, that's really interesting, because I see that you take Magellan, TRICARE, Cigna, Medicaid is actually paying more than all of those. And then it becomes, another reservation. Well, they take too long to pay. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting, because we get paid faster than, our Blue Cross Blue Shield PPO plans, right? And then when I still see a burden, I say, why don't we talk about what's really happening here? Like, we know that poverty disproportionately impacts community of colors. Are you worried about having poor Black and brown clients in your waiting room? Because if that's it, we need to have a conversation about that, right? Because what we're doing is we're isolating people and we're denying them care. And then we're leaving people on long wait lists and not being able to get the care that they deserve, right? And what happens there is that when someone's ready for treatment, they don't go for it. Or what's happening now is that in 2023 in May, they lifted a lot of the COVID restrictions, right? They had every state got extra funding in what they called continuous coverage. So that way people wouldn't get kicked off of Medicaid during the COVID pandemic. When they lifted those emergency measures in May of 2023, they started kicking people off Medicaid left and right without notice. Now, remember, our clients may have language barriers. So if they're getting letters in the mail saying that you need to reapply for Medicaid, they may not understand that, right? They may not, and our clients with unstable housing, they may not even be getting the mail, right? Our clients that are living in cars, what are they doing in terms of even being able to find out that they need to reapply for Medicaid in order to qualify for services, right? So I have never seen as many people get kicked off of Medicaid and have their treatment disrupted with no warning, right? Not even a time to be able to do a proper discharge or to talk somebody through, or to create a discharge planning so that way they know what the next step is. It's just immediate and it's sudden. And for many of our clients, that's all they know, right? That's what they expect. What it does, it reinforces their already held negative belief systems about themselves, is that they are unworthy of care and that people are not going to help them, right? So that's what we're dealing with at our level. So I encourage all healthcare providers to challenge some of the mentalities of the places that you're working and question, why is it that we're not providing accessible, equitable care? Why are we turning people away over certain insurance plans? Because none of our therapists make less than $50 an hour, with most making much more than that. And they're traveling out of state to multiple different conferences with having a full healthcare plan and PTO and, student loan forgiveness. And if we can do that taking Medicaid, that means everyone can do it. And we're trying to be able to help motivate people to close this gap. So I'm going to turn over to Brenda now. She's actually the one who's providing more direct care. I'm more of an administrative role now. I'm trying to manage the day-to-day operations, but Brenda has really great insight into what's happening in the clinical room with the clients that she works with.
Thank you, Sabrina. I don't know how I'm going to top that, but I'll try. So hello, my name is Brenda Pasia. I'm a therapist, and I'm also the business development director at R&B Counseling. So did you know that mental health claims can be denied by health insurances companies for reasons for not medically necessary or just their benefits? Also, did you know, just as she mentioned, that the federal policy was lifted on May 2023. So the programs for people that were enrolled in Medicaid were not able to use those services anymore due to the COVID-19 public health emergency. So people that had to reapply did not get some of the approval based on income. And why do I bring this up? Because this affected my clients alone. I lost a total of 9 clients in the last month. And just this week alone, I was just telling Sabrina that 2 new clients just shared that they're going to lose coverage too. This impacted them because a lot of them, just like Sabrina said, have a hard time coming to therapy to begin with. They have a hard time finding the services available, and they take a long time to even just trust. Some of my clients were established clients that we had done some work, but some were new clients that we were just starting to have some breakthroughs. And for them to all of a sudden have this abrupt service ended without any type of notice, as mentioned, it was really hard for them because now all of a sudden they had this intense feeling of loss and abandonment, which a lot of these people did go through some of this trauma, right? They go through trauma of neglect. They have this feeling of unworthy, insecurity, and they have a hard time trusting. So most of my clients have never been to therapy, as mentioned, because of that fear of trusting. So that once they left, all of a sudden they did not want to trust again. So even though we were provided with them with some services that can help them, since they lost services with us, they did tell me that they weren't sure if they were going to able to continue therapy because now they didn't feel like anyone would help them. And to be able to trust another individual was going to be very difficult because they shared information that they never shared before. So it was really hard because, of course, we did not prepare for some of these terminations. I found out sometimes on that day of that was going to be the last time I was going to see the client because that's when they shared it with me. So it was really difficult for me as a therapist, a social worker, and for Sabrina and all of us overall at R&B and Stonecatchers, because we aim to provide mental health services to the oppressed communities. We recognize the systemic inequalities minority groups experience with mental health and take on the role of advocacy and support. So as an organization, we aim to raise awareness about the challenges for the refugees and the BIPOC communities face. That is what I do. That's part of my business development role director. I talk to organizations like you and others and individuals about some of those challenges that they face and why we need some donations or funding to help those individuals that are not able to afford therapy services. And I will provide like our website. I'll show a little bit of both RB and Stonecatchers, by the way. So most of my clients are in the Latino community. Most of my clients are between the ages of 18 and 34 years old. So they don't have families, they don't have kids. Those are the ones that lost coverage. So they were, again, not able to find coverage somewhere else, or again, didn't want to trust. My life goal was to help people in the Latino community specifically because I am a first-generation Mexican-American. I grew up not knowing English. I went into rooms and not had any idea what anybody was saying. And I was translating for years for my mom and dad because they did not know what maybe my teacher was saying, a doctor was saying. So I knew the struggles. So I wanted to be able to help back to the community. So some of the barriers that Latino community has is stigma, right? There's that whole, exactly what Sabrina says, only people that are crazy go to therapists. They have no idea really what mental health even looks like, the symptoms, and how to provide support. So a lot of my young adults, I'll talk to their parents and I'll try to build that relationship, effective, healthy communication with them, and even psychoeducation of what mental health looks like so they can provide that support for their children or their family members. And I've had parents where after speaking to them in my family sessions, they start joining me in their own individual work. And I've also had other family members then decide to do individual work or even tell their friends and family like about what we do at R&B. So another thing that we have, like another barrier that we have, is that privacy concern. A lot of individuals that are in Latino community, they don't want to share things like trauma events that happen in their childhood. So they hold on to this for a long period of time. I've had individuals share things that they've held on for years because they didn't have the space to provide that type of information because they felt that they were going to get judged. And it goes back to the shame and guilt. So they carried this on for years. And so again, it's when they see someone like me that's relatable and they maybe looks like someone like them, it's easier for them to share that. And then there's that language barrier. I'm fluent in Spanish, so I do help these individuals that don't understand in English. So we'll have therapy sessions in Spanish, but I also have young adults that again know English or teens that know English, but their family members don't know Spanish. So their parents don't know English. So I'm able to talk to them in Spanish and give them that, comfort to know that they are being taken care of and they have a safe space to share. And also I'll help them with some psychoeducation themselves too. So, and another big concern is that immigration fear. I have clients that have parents that are not US citizens, and it's really hard for them to talk about some of those struggles that they have. So one of the things that I recently found out from one of my clients is that they had to help, once they graduated high school, they bought a home for their family because their parents couldn't buy a home because they are not US citizens. And they carry, like Sabrina said, that burden, right? That burden that creates anxiety, that leads to depression. And then they come to me feeling guilty for having all these burdens because they have to, because what else can they do? They have to help the family. So what I try to do as a therapist is just provide that trust, that support to create that safe space for them. And I plan to continue to do so. And I was lucky enough to find our R&B counseling. Well, I started at Stonecatchers. And because exactly that's Sabrina's mission and vision. So it's something that I like to make sure that everyone that even comes through this door, I share with them exactly what we represent and how we have they know that they have the support with us, right? Because we genuinely feel that need to help them all the time. And we advocate for them everywhere we go. Doesn't matter where we're in the office or not. This is what we do all the time. So, and that's it. I can share, I'm trying to
Yeah.
close this.
What if you want to share some stuff? I just want to say, first of all, thank you both
Sure.
for such a powerful presentation. I think that was so important. And I can just say, from experience, just yesterday, I'm trying to seek services for a young man who's a person of color, and he's for the first time reaching out, trying to make a change for himself, and he has Medicaid. And so I'm having to help him navigate all these places saying no to him, and it's frustrating because it's his first time really asking for help. And we're not really able to show him the services that he should be, able to access just because of his socioeconomic situation. So thank you for your advocacy work and obviously the therapy work that you do, but that was just incredibly important. I would love if anybody has questions. So how about this? If anyone's got a question or comment on the Zoom side, you should have a little tiny digital hand that you can raise. If you want to do that, we can get to you. Or if anybody here in person has a question or comment, I got an extra microphone. You can do that. So if anybody has a comment or question for Sabrina or Brenda, feel free to jump in. Mike Murray, come on up, my friend. I got a mic for you. Sabrina knows Mike and Brenda might too. Hang on one second. There you go, sir.
Yeah, I gotta contact you. It's been too long, but I'm wondering if
Hi,
you're.
Mike.
Well, I'm wondering what's happening with the Sileys. Because obviously they've been through a ton of trauma. Who is screening them and taking care of them, or are they pretty much 100% out of luck? And we hear about them also related to the drugs. Have you heard anything about asylees with drug addiction problems? Was that a myth?
So asylees, I believe he was asking about. Do you see a lot of that as part of the population that comes in?
I think I missed the question. What was that?
I think he was asking about
Asylum.
asylum seekers, if that was part of the population that you see regularly now.
Yeah, definitely. So we definitely have asylum seekers, and there's a really great agency called World Relief Chicago who's been stepping in to help out when it comes to those, because they have access to different resources, different policy advocates, different things along those lines to be able to help move that along. So that's been one of the agencies that we've really been able to connect with in order to help our clients, like lawyers and things along those lines at discounted rates, so that way they can actually move forward in that process.
Awesome. Any other questions or comments for Brenda and Sabrina? I think we do have some in the chat. Hang on one second, because I know there was a couple comments. I'm going to see if there's a question in there. Yeah, just some comments about the same issues we run into with Medicaid and versus private insurance. I think that seems to be a common problem with a lot of us who work with these populations and in the referral game too. How's the best way to seek services if we need it and refer to you?
Yeah, definitely. Great question. So I'm putting in our email addresses so you can go through either R&B counseling, either Stonecatchers, either way it's going to come to me. And then we do the intake and we try to move things along as fast as possible because we know that a lot of our clients have been waiting months and sometimes even years. I mean, I just got a call from someone yesterday saying like, you know, please, I'll pull my kid out of school. We've been on a wait list at this other place for 2 years. And I was like, 2 years for a child to be able to not be able to get services for no other reason than they have Medicaid. It's
Yeah.
just
And one other thing I want to comment on, you brought up a really good point, which is, you know, we have to share some of this, right? It can't just
Right.
be one or two organizations that are facing the brunt of all of the Medicaid and Medicare work. What can we do to advocate? If we're just somebody who wants to advocate, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's one like Mike Murray, like great person to network with. Like he's going to different like political meetings and having people share about this need, so that way we can get more funding, bring the awareness. But I think in any time when healthcare professionals get together, I think we need to be asking these questions, like, what are we doing to serve, right? Because like that is a burden that we carry. Is like, you know, when people have a gap in services, like, or we find out that they terminate, it's usually they've already had 8 sessions by the time that we find out. So we've already had 8 sessions that are unpaid, right? So now we need other places to be able to step in to say, okay, well, you provide that pro bono work, just like we send our sliding scale to Open Path Collective, because sometimes people just like, go like, oh no, if you do this, you should just do everything. And I'm like, you know, like we all have to kind of like disperse and share some of like the responsibilities as a community, right? And like really asking people, especially leaders of organizations, like, what are you doing to serve? And if you're not taking Medicaid, if you're unwilling, like, why is that? And what can we do to help change your mind and start having some of these dialogues? Because people are carrying false narratives. Like I said, people are like, oh no, that'll pay me like $50 an hour. And I was like, no, like it's paying more than commercial rates. Like a lot of times people hang on to a belief system of things that happened years ago and think it's still happening now. Like the Medicaid reimbursement rate for a 60-minute session in private practice went up by 40%, like just in 2020. And a lot of people don't know that. So they continue to think that they're not going to be able to pay their staff. They're not going to be able to survive. They're not going to be able to do that. And that's just simply not true.
Thank you. Hang on, we got another question. Hang on, Scott Coppin, DuPage Health Department.
All right, health department. Woo!
Absolutely fabulous presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What ages are served at R&B and Stonecatchers?
What industry?
Sorry, ages.
What ages? So we serve age 3 to 105. So we have a like child therapist, adolescent therapist, you know, geriatric therapist. So we hire based on that. So that's why we have a full team to make sure that we have every age group covered.
Perfect. So I'm like just now starting to put together materials for early childhood referrals and stuff like that. And so have not done a great job in the past about that 0 to 5 range. And so 3 and up is perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you,
for the work
Scott.
you're doing.
All right. Well, Sabrina and Brenda, thank you again. And really thank you for the work that you're doing. It's fills such an important gap. It really is a very, very amazing the work that you're doing. So anything we can do in the future to help, please let us know.
Thank you.
And we'd be glad to have you back at some point.
Awesome. Thank you.
So again, rnbcounseling.com. You can check that out for all of your needs. So thank you again. I do have another guest. My next guest needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyways. Many of you know Mike Wood from the work he currently does at Banyan Treatment Centers, and maybe before that, Indiana Centers for Recovery, or you might just know him from the recovery community in general. Mike's a good friend of ours, both personally and professionally, but he's helping start a new group called the Spiritual Care Network, which aims to kind of bridge the gap between faith-based communities and service providers. So I wanted Mike to come on just for a few minutes to talk a little bit about that. And Mike, I'm going to hand it to you, my friend, and I'm going to share the screen with that flyer again. So it's all yours, sir.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Can everybody hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, perfect. So first of all, it's like Sabrina, what you were talking is exactly something that we'd be looking to have you on and come and join us and sort of teach ministry leaders, mental health professionals more about, because there's just a huge gap and I think a lot of misinformation on a topic like that. So I am going to connect with you after this and see if you guys can come out for one of our Spiritual Care Network meetings. And I'll be really quick here. So basically, what I had noticed, I was a youth pastor for about 7 years, and really had a wild transition to my faith in Christ, and devoutly atheist, and had this beautiful spiritual transformation. The church did a lot for me, and being involved more with the church, I will honestly say I think we're missing the mark as a whole when it comes to mental health and substance use and things like that. So the goal here was, we weren't trying to reinvent the wheel or anything like that. This is actually, we're merging with a program that's done in Tennessee, Texas, Georgia, California, a whole bunch of other places. And basically it's simply this: we're bridging the gap between mental health providers, recovery professionals, and the faith community. You don't have to be a Christian to join us, but just know that you're going to hear about Jesus, and you're going to hear about biblical principles. So we don't want to mislead anybody. There's always going to be a lunch sponsor, but the premise is, or the format is, going to be pretty simple. We're going to have a time for networking and sort of almost like small groups. There's going to be questions that are going to be asked to a group of people, and panel discussions. Each month we're going to have a speaker give sort of a teaching on some sort of specialty thing. I didn't want to put anybody on the spot, so I'm going to do the first one. And simply put, it's just, we're going to talk about utilizing your gifts for somebody else's success. And just in a sense of, I think myself and many other people, we take on way too much, instead of like just humbly saying, hey, I don't know, but I know somebody who does. Let me connect you. And I think that's where, to be honest with you, and just to be candid, I think that's where the church has fallen short a lot, is we try to take on too much without sort of bridging out and saying, hey, we need help with so-and-so. So then we're going to have a guy named Pastor Adam, who's going to talk about the forgotten families. We have a clinician named Jen. She's going to give a teaching on boundaries. As I said, Sabrina, I'd love to get you on the roster, and hopefully you can come out and share with us as well. But that's going to be the gist of it. It's going to be pretty relaxed. There's the hope, and the goal is to really get people in the same room that otherwise wouldn't be in the same room, and really bridge gaps with 4 simple principles: encouragement, education, enlightenment, and empowerment. And just to give credit where credit is due, I felt the Lord sort of nudged this on me a long time ago, and then a conversation with Nisha, it ended up making this come to fruition. So thank you, Nisha. And we're glad to bring this to you guys. You guys can screenshot this, take this information down. We'd love to have you. And Sabrina, I will definitely be reaching out to you, because I think that's a topic that definitely needs to be discussed within the church. So that's the gist of it. If you guys have any questions, if you don't already have my number for whatever reason, I put it in the chat. You can reach out to me at any time, and love to give you more information on what we have happening.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Mike. And I can say from experience that when we started the ROSC, you obviously have a bunch of different sectors, right, that you want to reach out to. And the faith-based community was always one that was kind of hard to crack sometimes. And I always felt like on both sides, we could be doing more to do things like this, to make the connection, right? We can't all do it by ourselves. It has to be a team effort in bridging that gap. So I'm really glad there's something like this, and it seems like it's in good hands. If Mike Wood is helping run it, it's in good hands. So yeah, everyone take a screenshot of that. Anybody got any questions for Mike before we get to organizational updates here at the end?
I have a question
All right,
for
go for it.
Mike. Mike, Heather, my name's Heather Jarkowski. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I'm a mental health advocate, and I'm a CRSS student at COD. I was wondering if you do any advocacy work for students that have IEPs in Catholic schools, because they do not take them. And my daughter was in the Catholic school, and she had an IEP at a public school, and I had to pull her out of a public school because she was bullied so bad. So I put her in the Catholic school, and she actually liked going to church, and since the Catholic school didn't help her with her mental health, and they said that she just had to get over it. And she got kicked out of the Catholic school. They didn't invite her back because they said that she wasn't a good fit. And I told the principal, I said, I didn't think that God turned children away. And it actually turned my daughter away from the church. She does not believe in God anymore. And I actually called the diocese, the superintendent of the Joliet diocese, and it was a big problem. So I just don't understand, like, why there should be more advocacy, why they don't take IEP's 504 plans to help children with mental health issues. To me, it's backwards. If you're teaching how God loves everybody, but they turn away kids with mental health problems.
Hey, Mike, you are muted if you want to unmute. There you
Thanks,
go.
Jared. Yeah, and I think that's sort of why we're getting this together, right? Is we're looking to see where the gaps are, and with the Catholic Church, and trust me, there's no excuse for that. And that's like the old adage of, you know, you have an alcoholic in a hole, and a priest walks by and says, "I'll pray for you." There's another person walks by and throws tools in the hole, and the alcoholic jumps in the hole with you, right? It's like, who's more helpful? The person who jumps in the hole and helps them out obviously is more helpful. So there's, with that, like my 16-year-old son went through the same thing at a Catholic school, and I'm not sure what the difference is between the Catholic schools, but they honored the whole process. They worked with a therapist. Like this Catholic, it was Pope St. John Paul and Aurora, and they went with like everything that his therapist recommended. So I'm not sure what the difference is between what, but you're right? Like nobody should be turned away, and there should have been more done for your child. And I'm absolutely apologetic that you had to go through that. And I think that's exactly why we're launching this program, is to hear those concerns and say, us as the faith community, where are we falling short, right? Because biblically, there is so much support to wise counsel. Right. I mean, Jesus was known as the good counselor, like literally in the book of Isaiah. I'm not sure why they did what they did, but that's certainly something that we want to address within this group and say, okay, who do we talk to now to get them to recognize or realize the seriousness of this? Right.
Yeah,
and that's the goal.
It's only
Why
the
don't-
there's
Why don't we have you guys connect offline just to
Sure.
continue that conversation? I don't mean to cut either of you off. I just got a
No.
couple more minutes left. So I want to honor any other organizations that might want to share. But I would love for you all to connect offline and maybe continue that conversation. And Heather, definitely go check out that meeting if you're able to.
Yeah.
That would probably
Wait,
be
can you
something.
leave it up real quick? I just want to take a
Yeah,
picture.
of course. I'm gonna
Okay.
leave it up there. With the
Thank you.
last 2 minutes, you're welcome. Last 2 minutes, we usually like to offer a chance for you to let us know what you're doing. So if anyone's on the line that has a particular program, maybe a meeting they've started, maybe something they need. Is there a meeting that needs support? Or are you new here and want to let us know about your services? This is your 2 minutes until the end. Not only Zoom, also people here in person. Actually, Mike, come see me, my friend. I'm going to give the mic back to Mike Murray because he is here to talk a little bit about some support needed for some mental health boards, I believe.
Yeah, elections are coming up in November. We're trying to get on the ballot in 4 locations in November in DuPage County. That would be Wayne, Winfield, York, and Downers Grove Township. But in order to do that, somebody put in $25,000 in Wheeling Township to oppose expanding services. And we've had some opposition here in DuPage. So we've always funded our campaigns on our own, but it's just become too much. To run a successful campaign, we need about $6,000 to $8,000. So we're having a fundraiser on May 4th at Trinity Church. You can check, it will be up on our website as soon as we figure out how to get it up on our website.
And I can share that info you gave me with a follow-up email to everybody.
There's no charge, but we hope that everybody is able to contribute whatever they're able. Maybe if anybody know Jeff Bezos.
And listen, a lot of important work gets done on those mental health, those township mental health boards. And a lot of times that's where we can let them know, you know, what are the gaps and what can we do to kind of fill some of that stuff? And I first met Mike along with Donna Foyle. We went to the Bloomingdale Township Mental Health Board, and that was actually a really, really important start for us with the ROSC. So get out there and advocate, because we need people with lived experience to advocate for this type of work.
Yeah, and all the boards do is provide grants. Sabrina and stone catchers, they can apply at any of the mental health boards to get help with those people that don't have any insurance.
Yeah. So thank you, Mike Murray. I am going to be cognizant of time. It is 4 o'clock. So the next meeting of the DuPage ROSC Council is going to be on Wednesday, May 8th. We will be talking about veterans issues. So that is also an important spot, sometimes a blind spot for us when we talk about substance use and mental health. So join us for that one. I am going to stay on the line here for a little bit longer in case anybody on Zoom has any questions or anything, but I want to thank both Sabrina and Brenda, as well as Mike, for coming to share. And thank y'all for coming. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.